All right, we have hit the button, the light has turned green, and we are all set and ready to go. As we continue our In Hindsight series, today we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, and specifically going over sort of the general sweeping lore of 4th ed
Yeah.
across much of the lore set up for it. I'm, as always, Bograt.
I'm Krampus.
I'm Hunter Green.
And I'm Vincent. And yeah, as Bograt said, this is not as deep a dive as I usually do into these books, partially because we're doing a bunch of them at the same time, and partially because there's not as much to dive into, which I kind of go into on this slide, as a matter of fact. So yeah, all the books here have crunchy bits for either the DM encounters, monsters, adventures, etc., or the players' powers, feats, etc. Sometimes both, but usually not. There's somewhat of a hard separation between like DM and player books, basically, and it takes up a good portion of it, all the books. So some are more fluff than rules, others are more rules than fluff. Sometimes it's a couple of introductory chapters and whatever. But in any event, there's basically smatterings of fluff to go over in books. And if I was going to go into more details, we'd be basically looking at like, here's this various individual planes that are barely of any interest to me, quite frankly. Or here's this dragon character where, okay, even when doing the 3-5 books, I tend to skip like the exemplars and the exalted deeds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because there really aren't that much fluff wise, and we have some random BP. And there it goes. Okay, good.
That was my
Still better than the environmental noises when I was recording from home. Not hearing my chair constantly. All right.
Also, I don't think that was actually coming through to OBS anyways.
Ah, gotcha. All right. Okay, starting with Draconomicon Chromatic Dragons, because we divided this into 2 Draconomicon books. And, oh man, calling it Draconomicon is a bad idea in the first place. So, yeah, they get 2 books in this edition, one for Chromatic and one for Metallic, which is strange enough on its own, but we'll get to that part later. But yeah, this one starts with origins as basically described in the DM's guide. The dragons were made by Io, who got split into half by a primordial known as the King of Terror. The 2 halves of the corpse became Bahamut and Tiamat. At that point, dragons started sorting themselves into camps. So the Metallics are more or less the ones that follow Bahamut. For a little while, the Catastrophics embrace the elemental chaos. The Scourge Dragons refuse to appear anywhere and only get mentioned in lines here and there throughout the entirety of 4th edition, but embrace reality to inflict affliction or learn to stuff like that. You get small lines. I don't think they appear in any monster manual, or I may have missed them. They might be somewhere. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I feel like there was 1 or 2, but they were not very significant.
No. They might also be like an adventure, like something like that. But yeah. In any case, they didn't make it. They didn't make a Draconomicon Scourge Dragons, so I can't be asked. Chromatic Dragons are the rest of them who decide to follow Tiamat, and from them, mostly from them, Planner Dragons evolved. They're exactly what they sound like. They're Chromatic Dragons that lived on their planes. Also, the other parts of here, it revisits the anatomy, life cycle, etc. from 3.5 Draconomicon, and is largely the same ideas. See R3.5 Draconomicon video.
Scourge dragons are Linorms.
The Linorms? Okay.
They literally never refer to Linorms as Scourge dragons, which is why it's understandable that we wouldn't recognize them. But yeah, the Linorms are the Scourge dragons.
Okay, then. Yeah, and also, they don't really... They do stuff with them for...
There are a bunch of Linorms like that.
Yes.
So they do exist, but they just literally... I think this is the only place they have ever called them Scourge dragons.
Yeah. And 4th edition wasn't around long enough to care about them, apparently. Let's see. Also in this book, here's some words and alphabets for the DMs who like to make hangouts with like fire symbols or have their dragons talk with silly words when referring to, like, I'm going to call elves this thing. Because dragons too need their gamer words. Dragon. Although I will admit they actually did a decent draconic alphabet script there, in the sense that, yeah, that looks like you could just write that by scratching.
Yeah, with a claw, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And the dragon gods, except not, because if you remember in previous editions, there were all those dragon gods I never went over because who the fuck cares? They've been reflavored as exarchs, which are powerful servants of deities that act as worship by proxy for the dragons specifically, so they can cope with and pretend they're not worshiping like some overhyped elf or something. Now getting into the new parts. Brown dragons. They decided to add more colors. Had some spare dragons laying around that kind of fit. Also, apparently, sand dragons started out as brown, anyways. But
Yes.
uh,
Yeah, I was informing Vince before we started. There are some notes in here just because I'm more familiar with second ed than basically anybody else in the group. So there were some comments in here that I was like, no, those are actually from second ed. They just didn't do them at all in third.
yeah, but yeah. But yeah, previously no sand dragons, and in 3.5 they're chaotic neutral. Here they're evil.
They
and
were
honest.
neutral evil in second ed.
Yeah, you could make an argument either way for them because they're basically lone hunters. They do the least they need in order to survive, live in deserts, breathe sand. They're basically white dragons, but sand and less on the cruel side. They are kind of actually neat, but yeah.
Yeah, also in second ed, much like second ed was interesting as far as what it considered a quote-unquote chromatic dragon. It really was just the 5 chromatics and the 5 metallics. There were other things that existed, such as brown dragons, but brown dragons, despite being named for a color, were not considered chromatic dragons.
Yeah. Also, as an aside, if you want fairly long and lengthy descriptions of both the primary 5 chromatics and primary 5 metallics, I get into it a lot in the 3.5 Dragonomicon. Hence why I'm going to be skipping it here. Because it's basically like repeating myself, give or take. Gray dragons, which are fang dragons, except not exactly. So they actually added fluff here. Team decided to purify the fang dragon bloodline and modified fang dragon eggs, giving them an acid breath weapon, and urging the new gray dragons with purging their less pure predecessors. There are very few fang dragon survivors, and they are always a target for gray dragons. Yeah, so in 3.5, Fang Dragons don't have a breath weapon. In 4th Ed, they actually do. And this fluff partially explains why. As I was kind of wondering that myself. Which is, okay, at least you made more fluff for it, but at the same time, do they really need to have a breath weapon? I mean...
It is worth noting that Fang Dragons do still exist as an independent thing in 4th Ed. They're just not very common. Gray Dragons are considered more common.
Yeah. Purple dragons, deep dragons, not to be confused with the much cooler purple dragons from the Dragon Compendium. They're still exploring the looking for that one thing that certainly exists.
These are kind of interesting because this is sort of a mix of the second ed purple dragons and the 3.5 deep dragons, because purple dragons in second ed were all focused on like underground and the underdark.
Yeah, the same thing with the deep.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a mix of the two of them, because the purple dragons in 3.5 and 3.5, they made a whole different thing.
Oh yeah. Well, the deep okay, so there's still deep dragons in 3.5. They are also made purple dragons, which is a completely different thing than the that was made in the Dragon magazine and made into the Dragon.
Right. That's what I'm saying though. Is that in second ed, what became deep dragons in 3.5 were purple dragons in second ed, essentially.
Yeah, which I find extra funny because it's like, wait, so these were already purple, but you decided to make a new purple. And okay, yeah. That said, I actually liked the purple dragons from the Dragon Compendium. They were an actual interesting take on dragon, but I could breathe sword.
Also looks like the blue eyes white dragon's slimmer cousin.
The turquoise-eyed purple dragon? I don't know. All right, and other dragons. So in here, there's obviously a monster section. Has planet dragons, including pack dragons, which is just fucking red dragons that they get the Yankee ride, but they call pack dragons for whatever reason here. Elemental dragons of various sorts, Feywild and Shadowfell wraps, which is pretty common for this edition. The Feywild and Shadowfell tend to get mentioned for basically or everything, and undead ones, including the Draco Liches, are also in here.
Yeah, the pack dragon thing is just specifically because they are red dragons that are bound in service to the undead queen of the Gith.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they are pretty much identical to reds.
Also, the Dragon Hall of Fame, which starts with Asher Dallon. Yeah, this motherfucker again. So he's just sitting in the Bastion of Unborn Souls, which is now just a place in the Astral Sea, since there isn't actually a positive or negative energy plane in this cosmology. So I guess it's floating out there somewhere. And he's slowly consuming souls, so go stop that, I guess. There's also other fabulous dragons in this section, but I don't care. Mostly I don't recognize them, and they're more or less put there as here's either previous or new baddies for endgame or for and solo fight in an adventure or campaign or something. Azure Download is absolutely end of campaign thing, but also in that section, Tiamat, and our first god-statted thing. So, one of the primary rules of RPGs that has existed since the Scion days of the white box D&D is
If you give it stats, they will kill it.
Yes. I will at least commend them on discorporation is very much a god thing in this edition. So once this gets to half health, they just disappear and nope the fuck out.
Also worth noting, as you may recall, 4th ed player-wise goes only to level 30. Now, monsters do go a bit above that in general, but it is really notable that Tiamat, being a god, is a level 35 solo.
Yes.
Meaning that they're even more powerful than a standard level 35 monster would be, meaning that realistically, even a party of level 30 people is going to have a hell of a time dealing with Tiamat.
Yes. And since this isn't 3.5, I don't think the power gaming gets quite an extreme.
No.
There's also an argument to be made that if you technically skip past bloody all the way to dead, maybe she doesn't discorporate. Most DMs are not going to buy that bullshit. But even then, you'd have to do like 800
damage in over 800 damage in a single attack, basically.
Yes. Which I don't think
because it is
so
important
in this edition, but I don't put it past players to figure that out.
Because it is important to note, discorporation isn't like an action or a reaction or anything. It is just a thing that happens when she becomes bloodied.
Yep. Yes.
So it is quite literally, it's not like, oh, well, if we can do it before she gets another turn, it will get her taken out. It's like, no, literally, as soon as she becomes bloodied, she is discorporated.
Yeah. Means you have to get her well past bloodied, possibly past negative con. But yeah. Even then, no.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is Tiamat. The aspect is on the other page. This is actually the god stats.
Yes.
All right. Now on to the Metallic Draconomicon. So the first question that came to mind with this one is, why isn't this part of the previous book instead of its own book? And there could be the usual answers of complete incompetence on the part of the people planning books, because who the fuck is going to buy a Metallic book? But yeah, besides those usual answers, it was basically just to make changes that they made stand out more. So, Dragon Origins. There's actually new stuff in this book from the previous one. According to the Metallics, when Io created dragons, his mood defined what type of dragon would eventually come out. His dark emotions created the chromatic and catastrophic dragons, for example. And the star dragons weren't even made by him, or instead imitations made by other deities. Or all, mind you, this is only according to the Metallics. All the other dragons dispute this heavily. So, who knows? Leaving stuff unclear is very much a trademark of this edition. Also, a dragon war occurred, and Io's charge to protect and inspire the lesser mortal races is something Metallics, but not all of them, care about. There's also a lot of ambiguity as to what Metallics do or don't care about, because, that comes to the major change in this edition. Metallic dragons are not always good, but they are always in pursuit of some purpose. Meaning even the good ones will kill adventurers to further their goals and rarely exhibit anything like compassion. A chromatic will raid and take things. A metallic manipulates and bends societies towards its cause, whatever its cause may be. So, as far as the metallic dragons are concerned, you take all of them in this edition, just tarnish them up, their personalities up a bit, and that's basically the 4th edition version of the classic metallics. Again, I go over them in the 3.5 Draconomicon in pretty good detail, so just go there if you want a incredibly detailed of them. But there's also new metallics. There's an asterisk on that. Some of these are from pre 3.5 or from 2nd and 1st edition, but yeah, mainly 2nd edition. But in any case, these at least skipped over 3rd edition. Starting with the Cobalt Dragons here, which are possessive creatures who value ruling large amounts of territory. They are forceful and demanding, often making trespassers bend the knee. They live in cold and gloomy climates, as well as the Shadowfell. Very much a borderline Shadowfell dragon in and of itself. And I guess you have worse rulers, however, than a dragon of one sort or another, depending on what alignment it is. All right. Iron Dragons. They don't have base Iron Dragon stats in the Metallic Dragonomicon, but they did appear in Monster Manual too. They also don't have a good picture of Metallic Dragon or of Iron Dragons in the Metallic Dragon book, but that's actually the best one I could find in 8 books.
Fire.
Yep. In case they are violent brutes who lair in territories with good game and cover like forests and broken hills. This actually often puts them in conflict with green dragons who outsmart them on pretty easily, actually. They're base creatures by nature that care mostly about their hunger, greed, and comfort. They are easily bribed and flattered into service. Hey, you could use these as NPCs, or you could use these as antagonists and or just like brute bosses in your game. Hint, hint. That is exactly what we've been redesigning all these dragons around. It is very much, hey, do you want to drop a dragon in? Sure, you can drop metallic, so we've made the fluff even easier to do that with. Both the new ones and the previous ones. Mercury dragons here. Variety-loving dragons from tropical climates that value different experiences and often work for others who are more powerful, setting up their lairs in places owned by their employers and or the elemental chaos. They are masters of shapeshifting, including being able to shift into a quicksilver form. They can literally turn into liquid metal. They are the Terminator.
T-1000 butt dragon. Gotcha.
Yes. They very they actually tend to like working for others and will do jobs like assassin is one of the ones listed, but assassin, spy, etc. Mithril dragons, the strongest of all metallic dragons and natives of the astral sea, where they often make their lairs. They devote themselves to deities and see visions of the future, as well as communing with Io spirit. Sometimes the fluff is universally non-committal. The amount of going back on itself and being self-contradictory is actually fucking even more annoying when it came to describing mithril dragons than in the rest of this book.
Sounds like a bunch of writers writing for this thing and not talking to each other.
No, in the section just for mithril dragons being written by one person.
Ugh.
The fourth ed's fluff is non-committal in a lot of areas, and this is where it's probably at its worst. Like, if you want there to be different factions of mithril dragons, that's fine. Please just describe different factions and don't talk over your own self in your own paragraphs. Like, just dividing them into camps would have actually made this easier to understand. Hey, case. Orium dragons. Dragons that favor dwelling in jungle ruins that they restore out of some instinctual civilization. They see lesser races in rigid categories of thief, food, or future servants. Yeah, mind you, by restoring jungle ruins, I mean make others restore jungle ruins.
I was about to say.
Technically, as metallic dragons, they should be able to shapeshift into human. On the other hand, they can't be asked.
I was going to say, why would they shapeshift into a lesser race?
Manipulation, usually. Which is not really their style. They are more tacturn. Let's see. Steel dragons. City-dwelling dragons that lair in houses in humanoid form, though they have secondary lairs in more remote places and ruins in cities. Like they'll find like a abandoned temple underground and just like make a lair there or something. They love human settlements more than any other places and hate authority, often working to undermine it. It doesn't matter what type of authority in any capacity, they just work to undermine it.
I can get behind that.
Tell me what to do. Drawing dragons on the wall or something.
You're not the boss of me.
Yeah. Pure anti-establishmentarianism.
You're not my supervisor.
And Draconians. So these are originally Dragonlance antagonists created from corrupting ritual cast upon metallic dragon eggs. Basically, the evil queen, something I did not write notes and don't remember enough about Dragonlance. But the main evil god in that setting got all, I think, the metallic dragon eggs and could corrupt them in order to make like basically flunkies. This one expands that genericizes the fluff so you could use it in places outside of Dragonlance, and also creates new ones for the other metallic types that didn't previously exist. Yeah, Draconians basically come several to an egg when the egg is corrupted. and they hatch. It is also notable that because of how they're kind of made by a strange ritual, sometimes when they die, they will just explode, uh, which is also funny. Let's see. And finally, this one also has a notable dragon section, and mostly I couldn't be asked, but here's Bahamut, including the old man with the canaries. Uh, one of the most amusing forms of Bahamut, and is also a planeswalker, certainly. Listen, we have to make planeswalkers somehow when we translate stuff to Magic cards. Uh, it's also really so. The blocks in this edition are excellent for running the creature, but sometimes really bad at conveying the fluff. He spends canaries in order to summon gold dragons, according to how the block reads. The canaries are just shapeshifted gold dragons. They are just shaping back into their normal form. That's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
His plan is for the.
Exactly. All right. Now, getting away from dragons and onto the planes. And the manual of the planes, which is more or less going to be the bulk of the rest of this asterisk. We're jumping around books. Probably the most difference between 4th edition and the previous ones is the change from the Great Wheel cosmology to the World Axis cosmology, with the spiritual astral plane above and the physical elemental plane chaos or elemental chaos below, and the world and its two reflections between. Also, there's sigils here too. Also, the far realm, possibly other things. Don't worry about it.
Fuck these stupid assholes.
So, as you might have guessed from that term, Bogran is a little upset with changes to sigil here. But yeah, the City of Doors no longer has the Great Wheel to sit on top of, so it just kind of floats on its own off to the side. That's not actually what I was upset about. It's more about something we will get to later. You know, this would actually just make a great hub market, but this is not actually the hub market of 4th edition for some reason, even though that would probably be one of the better places for it.
Why work with what works when we can do other shit?
Well, you know. Let's see. In case, going over the other stuff briefly, the Far Realm never got a big AK book, so here's most of the lore about for it. There's some other lore when it comes to monsters. Most notably is Aboleth, Mind Flayers, and Beholders, and other aberrants are now tied directly to it, as opposed to what they were beforehand. The Aboleths were just really fucking ancient beings from near the beginning of time that have just kind of always been around and remember everything because they inherited their memory. And Mind Flayers were the literal opposite, time travelers coming back from the far future, and end of civilization things. Beholders were just a product of an elder evil that just kind of sprinkled them everywhere. But yeah, which in of itself, you just tie the elder evils to the farm. I guess that kind of works. Also, Mangthu Nagatha is that is mentioned here. That's the deity of the Sokari worship. I have seen Sokari around. I didn't want to actually track them down because it wasn't really that important. But the Sokari are actually in this edition. If you recall, they originated in Lords of Madness. They're the basically colony worm sort of things that jump inside of and puppet people. And had the least disgusting meeting rituals of that book.
That's not hard.
No, it wasn't. Also, the Plane of Dreams, which prompted me to ask the question, the what now? This has appeared in previous editions in obscure places, Planescape books and such. If it's appeared in previous edition Planescape books, by the way, is often the answer. But this is, at least for 2nd edition, but this is only time it's really mentioned in 4th. It's pretty much what you'd expect, a lot of baddies like poking around in this place. Just imagine something akin to the Cthulhu Mythos dream stuff or anything like that, or any other, dream realm. Like literally the name says everything about it, basically. All right, on to the Feywild. a more naturey parallel world known as the Plain of the Fae, with vast forests and every type of folklore or legend from all over Europe shoved into one spot. Residents of it range the whole gamut from good and evil, from as fair as the Eladrin to as ugly as the Fomorians, with only one thing in common: they're all assholes. So, anyways, the Shadowfell. In fairness, the book does describe like various places and areas of the Feywild. It's not that interesting. If you are actually planning to do like a campaign in the Feywild, it is a decent source of inspiration in that chapter. The Feywild never really got its own straight dedicated book. There is a Heroes of the Feywild book, but it's not quite the same. But yeah, the Shadowfell, on the other hand, or the Plane of Shadow, has been called both before and in this edition, is a parallel dark world where the dead souls initially go before either ascending to or heading to Latherna, the home of the Raven Queen, which is the initial pit stop of the dead souls before either exaltation or damnation or becoming outsiders, or also ? Uh, the again, this isn't them being wishy-washy. There is legitimately just that many different fates for the dead, which is kind of fair. This is also where they put the Domains of Dread, aka Ravenloft, and its various places. Like, you can get in, good luck getting out. Furthermore, this one actually got its own book. There is an actual Shadowfell book, which I will go into briefly, as I found a single page particularly interesting. So the gods and such that operate in the Shadowfell. There are 4 powers in there. The Raven Queen, who most of the living inhabitants worship because all the other options are far worse. Vecna, which is and Zahir, who have cults set up here, and Orcus, who openly wages war against the Raven Queen because he wants to be the god of death. And speaking of, so there's actually a 5th power here. Very few cultists trying to revive the former god, the dead god and former god of the dead. Their rule. Who the Raven Queen ganked for refusing to shower. Yes. Exactly.
To be fair, he's probably also more stinky as a corpse.
I think it was a corpse beforehand. Or at least that's what they're going for when it came to their rule. But yeah, it was actually interesting seeing. Oh yeah, that they actually used him here. Huh. He steps on the same domains as like Orcus anyway, so I can kind of see getting rid of him.
Yeah.
In any case, the Elemental Chaos. The Plane Below. Yeah, this has its own book, which we'll talk about briefly. The Elemental Chaos serves as a complete replacement for the Elemental Planes, as a big, swirly mass of elemental forces that was sort of ruled by primordials. The weather is beyond inhospitable in any place. Most things move around, so there's no real fixed position. There's a few exceptions. One of them that I didn't actually make a slide for are the Pillars of Creation, which are large pillars of singular elements that go all the way up to the top of the Elemental Chaos and all the way to the floor of the Elemental Chaos, is what they say, because there's no such thing as a ceiling or floor to the Elemental Chaos. It's just infinite in every direction. But somehow the pillars are there anyways. There also wasn't a great page for it, so... in any case, Into the Abyss. Into another book, so we're 2 books deep now. The Demonomicon. So this has new stuff, actually, when it comes to the Abyss. Oberth's road into this universe on what's called the Shard of Evil for a previous one they destroyed. It is literally the remains of a previous universe that the Oberths completely destroyed. They tried to have it planted in the Astral Sea, but the god that found it was Tharzadon, who went completely fucking insane when he found it and just plunged it, decided, nah, I'm just going to instead plunge this into the Elemental Chaos, which created the Abyss. The Overworld Lords fought Thars for control of it. He eventually fended them, and they eventually fended him off. So he decided to, okay, screw it, I'm going to just go off and try and conquer heaven with all the primordials I can muster. Meanwhile, primordials started entering the Abyss and becoming corrupted into demon lords. That's pretty much what most of the demon lords are actually in the Abyss. There was also initially a scramble for the Shard, which was claimed by Obix Og, who no one liked, but this made him the Prince of Demons, and he felt compelled to bring the Shard to the Astral Sea, which the other demon lords decided, nah, and attacked him, flinging Obix Og's and the Shard down, sundering the Abyss, and creating even more so than it already was, and continuing to do so. It is literally just creating more and more layers. Demon Lords can't really even go and reclaim the shard. As they get closer, they actually grow weaker. So it just kind of sits there. Meanwhile, Thar's renamed himself the Elder Elemental Eye and mustered some primordials on the outside to retrieve the shard and something victory over the gods. It's called a mad god for a reason, okay? Any case, his chief lieutenant was the primordial known as Miska the Wolf Spider, who in previous editions was nothing of the sort. He was the demon prince consort of the Queen of Chaos. But in any case, he led the assault just as E3 got by the gods and was chained up and became the Chain God. Miska, meanwhile, fought Obix out of nowhere, the most powerful Oberith, the Queen of Chaos, slew Obix Og, offered his title to Miska, and more or less were kind of back on track with 3.5's lore. They start waging wars on the gods. Miska gets captured. The Queen of Chaos retreats into her lair of the Abyss, and then the writers forget that she exists, and the Demon Lords squabble amongst each other because they're Demon Lords. What do you want? However, different from this edition. So Asmodeus was originally the Archangel tasked with guarding the Chained God. But at the behest of the Queen of Chaos, Pazuzu left the Abyss and whispered flattering knowledge of the Shard of Evil to Asmodeus, who went into the Abyss and managed to retrieve a sliver of it, which he turned into his ruby rod. And now he wants the rest of it, which is actually what the Blood War is in this edition. And we're back in the Manual of the Plains finally, so, some book jumping. So the Blood War now is a conflict between the Demon Lords and Asmodeus, just straight in origin, and continues as such. It is not the cosmic battle between law and chaos, ironically in the law and chaos edition of the game. But yeah, Asmodeus basically wants the rest of the Shard of Evil, Evil Seed, Bit of Badness, Fragment of Foulness, Dung of Damnation, pick your name for it, they keep fucking changing it, in order to take over the etc. It's Asmodeus, you know what the fuck he wants. And the Demon Lords want his staff to make the Itch of Ick whole again and make themselves more powerful. Let's see. Oh yeah, by the way, we're doing the Plains War, not just the Abyss. So anyways, the City of Brass. No longer in the play.
Fuck these stupid assholes.
Yeah, so no longer in the Plate of Fire because there isn't one. The City of Brass is the major trade hub of the cosmology, as it has lots of portals like Seal, except they're actually stable and predictable. Also, the City of Brass doesn't actually move in the elemental chaos, so it's actually in a fixed spot. No, I don't know why they didn't just fucking use Sigil.
Because they're cowards. It was right there.
I mean, also technically, it's your fucking game. Just use Sigils to market. It's not that hard.
Really, just fuse the fucking two together. And be
It's
done
again,
with it.
the thing that bothers me the absolute most about it is, I mean, obviously aside from the whole, stable portals being stable and predictable, everything else about it is just the fucking lore of Sigil. The reason Sigil is important is not only because it is at the center of the Great Wheel, but also because it is the massive trade hub of the plains.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to Sigil.
It's also a lot more neutral a place in the first place, thanks to the Lady of Pain, effectively. Lady of Pain, creator of 3rd edition.
And possibly 5th.
And possibly 5th, yeah. A case. The Astral Sea, also known as the Plane Above, which also has its own book. So the Astral Sea is some combination of the Astral Plane crossed with basically Spelljammer. It's a vast open area where the domains of gods flowed, including the 9 Hells, which are more or less the same as in 3.5. So basically, go watch our Phoenix Codex 2 Tyrants of the 9 Hells video if you want more info on that. As a matter of fact, I didn't mention in the previous section, but we also have a Phoenix Codex 1 Hordes of the Abyss. That goes over pretty much all of the, or goes over the Abyss in more detail, and the details are more or less the same with a few exceptions.
I do have to say, as much as I don't, so the whole war and like the reasoning behind the war between the demons and devils in 4th Ed is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why they felt the need to co-opt it as the Blood War.
I don't know either.
But that being said, as far as the cosmology goes, I do think it is an interesting choice to have the abyss specifically be in the elemental chaos, while the 9 hells are in the realm of the gods, because Asmodeus is a god.
Yeah.
I think it is actually an interesting change in lore.
It also helps them stand out from each other effectively.
Yeah.
And
It is the difference between being, no, this is the realm of an evil god versus, no, this is just the realm of, evil.
this is evil corrupting chaos, effectively. But yeah. In any case, in the if you actually find yourself, by the way, in the middle of the astral sea, if you can swim, you can swim. If you can fly, you can fly. If you can't do either of these things, you just kind of float in whatever direction you want. And hence why they just use boats, because everything basically works somehow.
It's worth noting this is not entirely new either. This is actually pretty much the lore of original Spelljammer as well. It was always ships that travel through the astral.
Yeah.
It just was not quite as codified, and Spelljammer kind of had a different astral plane than the general astral plane, whereas this one, they just sort of merged it all together.
Yeah. But yeah, the astral sea more or less acts as where you go when you die, as well as just being the domain of the gods. Unless, your soul is taken by a demon, in which case you'd be proper fucked.
So it's Tokyo,
Yes.
the land of the gods.
So dominions are usually house several different gods. Sometimes it's a peaceful and cooperative affair, and sometimes it's this fucking nonsense. Chernagar. So
I love Chernagar.
Chernagar's
Chernagar's fantastic.
Yeah, this is just fucking
It's so
silly.
fucking stupid. I
Yes,
love it.
is. All right, so Bane in this edition became the god of war and conquest by just slaying the previous one, as you do, Twern, and taking over the mantle and using it for the rest of the Dawn War. But Grumbish saw that as an opportunity to gain more power, and decided that he would smash his own domain into Chernagar in order to take down that new upstart god. Except Grumbish is fucking terrible at logistics, and it took him eons in order to crash his plane into the other, which was well after the Dawn War and Bane had actually established his power, so he was actually able to hold his plane together, but it fused it with Grumish's, so it's just a plane of endless war between the two forces. This is an afterlife world. Anyone who dies just kind of comes back, so it's just fucking nonsense war.
The thing that I think is honestly funniest to me about Chernagar is like extremely like a dark lens of Valhalla.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing with Valhalla, the actual like Norse concept of Valhalla is you wake every morning, wage war throughout the day. At the end of the day, when night falls, everyone who died gets back up and returns to the mead halls to drink and eat and celebrate, passes out, wakes up the next day, starts it all over again. This is pretty much like that, except without the celebration part.
Yeah. I actually do like this better than the Great Wheel equivalent, which is the lawful neutral, lawful evil plane of metal cubes smashing together.
Yes.
The plane of eternal war, I forget the name of it, but it will actually come up in a few slides. But yeah, no, this one amuses the hell out of me just because of what it is.
I also like within this, they're like, Bane was either a mortal hero or a demigod who slew Turn. It's like, we know what Bane was, motherfucker.
Yeah, twink.
Exactly.
It's like, we are well aware of who Bane is and what he was before he was a god. That's established canon.
Yeah. All right. And the Lattice of Heaven. Oh god, this book mentioned the Lattice of Heaven. So I was trying to find a good, clear page to describe the Lattice of Heaven through this book when I was doing my research, so I typed in Lattice as a find. I think there's like 400 fucking mentions of the Lattice of Heaven. It's just completely mentioned throughout the plane above. It is mentioned in no other book.
I mean, in fairness, it is within 4th ed like canon. The Lattice of Heaven is sort of the primary infrastructure of the Astral Sea. So
yeah, or was rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is mentioned constantly in this book. The last was a project to connect all the divine dominions, which got shattered into pieces during the Dawn War, creating the Astral Sea, as well as creating archipelagos of outer islands, which surrounding the functioning domains, and becoming the explanation for practically every anomaly in the plane above, as opposed to the explanation for everything else within 4th edition, which is Primordials did it. Arathis, the Civ god, wants to recreate the Lattice of Heaven and unite the upper planes into one big civilization. Good luck with that. Also up there is some Shattered Dominions, which are basically dominions of dead gods. Also Karasarai, the prison plane. Also where they put some both Karasarai and Pandemonium, so you too can torture your players by leaving the window open on a windy day. Of note, Pandemonium is not the domain of a dead god, just the domain of one who is currently chained. In other words, this is Tharsadum's domain, which has been abandoned, and he's a lunatic. So yeah, it kind of reflects its former owner.
One thing I do like about the Carcerai here is that in here they clearly established, because it's one of those things where in previous editions when they talked about Carcerai, there were 20 different stories, all of which were of debatable canon. But here, since they really only had the one book establishing this stuff, what they say here is straight canon to the edition. Within this, they have specifically established that Evandra, Corlon, Melora, and Xanine were like, no, fuck that. We're not making an entire plane to be a prison. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I mean, they had to put Parmoira somewhere. By that, I mean everywhere. Let's see. Also, back into the manual of the plane, which has its own monster section, and Drazit wasn't actually in the Demonology, he was originally in here, because he actually has a new origin. He was once a devil. He was the advisor to Asmodeus, charged with getting the Shard of Evil / Evil Seed / Vegetable Villainy. Okay, I'll stop. He conquered 3 layers of the Abyss but his invasion stalled at that point, and Grezza decided to just go to him and become a Demon Lord. He might still be working for Asmodeus. Everyone might be working for Asmodeus. I might be working for Asmodeus.
I am definitely working for Asmodeus. Maybe.
Secretly, no one is working for Asmodeus, including Asmodeus.
What am I even doing?
Also of note, I didn't put on a slide either. While succubi are devils, incubi are demons.
Yeah.
No,
Because that's what it's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So, also of note is what isn't here. The most striking absences for the Great Wheel cosmology are the dedicated law and chaos planes, the ever-changing chaos of Limbo, and the clockwork nirvana of Mechanus. Especially since literally the alignment system more reflects the original basic Beckme one of law with the law and chaos axis, because the original alignment system was just law, neutral, and chaos, with the evil stuff being thrown on chaos mostly. Sort of, it's complicated. We certainly didn't just sell this for Michael Moorcock like everything else, for like a lot of things we did. But yeah, rather it has that rather than the D&D 9 alignment axis system. So these would, strangely enough, they sort of both do and don't fit. Because while the elemental chaos is, well, it's literally fucking called the elemental chaos, where the hell does limbo actually make sense in there, or is the elemental chaos just literally limbo? You could make an argument there. Mechanus should have been somewhere. I don't know if you could have put Mechanus just in the Astral Sea.
Limbo, I could see the argument being that anywhere that is not particularly like elementally attuned within the elemental chaos is just regular limbo.
Yeah.
It is just pure chaos rather than being like, oh, this is the more like fiery section and this is more like watery section, whatever.
Yeah.
So like I could see that. But yeah, Mechanus needs to exist, especially with how heavy the law chaos like focus is. Yeah, and it's just really weird that it doesn't.
So it would have been great to reintroduce Modrons. That's just a complete fucking miss, considering the previous edition basically didn't really have them.
No. And Modrons are fucking fantastic, because nobody knows why Modrons do what they do, but are very worried anytime they do anything.
Yeah. Also, there's no Hades, but do you really need a plane of suck and depression? Like it doesn't help the fact that there's actually nothing else for Hades to do, because the one thing I think that was about it was this was the lair of the hags. They're
basically
the Feywild.
Yeah, they're the Feywild now. They repurposed hags to be Fey, which I mean
they
repurposed
a lot to be Fey.
Well, but I mean, especially with hags, it actually does make a lot of sense considering their folkloric origins.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's the other thing too, is because especially in this edition, talking about that alignment system again, wherein there is no longer such a thing as like neutral evil.
Yep.
You don't need quite as many planes, because a lot of the reason why a lot of planes existed in earlier editions was to make sure that we have planes aligned with each of the 9 alignments.
Well,
and it's like,
yeah,
okay, but now we have just like, we have chaotic evil and we have evil, and we have these like 20 evil domains. Like half of them were neutral evil, half of them were lawful evil, but now they're just evil or chaotic evil.
Yeah.
We have a lot of overflow now.
Yeah. The Great Wheel basically divided it basically divided into 18 planes. Yeah, 18 planes where it is basically the the 9 axes and then like the spaces in between.
Yeah, it was the spaces in between, and it was sort of the like you have the two quote unquote lawful good planes, but one is more toward the lawful, one is more toward the good, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. But it's basically there's the lawful neutral plane, the lawful neutral, the lawful good plane, then the lawful good plane. And
Yeah.
Basically having those in between planes, and they did the same thing with the elemental planes, where there'd be in between and
Where they
elemental
meet.
planes,
The
and stuff like
the
that.
para-elemental planes, the demi-elemental planes, the quasi-elemental planes, all of which are actually really cool, and is one of the other things that I'm really upset with them ditching the Great Wheel cosmology, because they are actually quite interesting.
They are. I do like the elemental chaos too.
The elemental chaos is good, but again, I feel like you could just incorporate that within Limbo.
Yeah.
And have it be like, hey, this is where the elemental planes touch Limbo.
Yeah, you could have it like, or almost the opposite. Like the elemental planes literally come from Limbo, because a lot of the origin of D&D is everything just fucking comes from chaos, including law.
Yep.
So like the literal chaos plane. For some reason, they tend to use the abyss instead, but it's like no, the chaos plane would make more sense here. You need the evil plane to be you don't need the abyss to be the origin point of everything, including everything opposite of it.
Partially due to, if I'm being perfectly frank, a unfortunate tendency with a lot of writers, and it's even weirder within D&D, where this has always been a very like key point that this is not the case, but there does tend to be a lot of tendency to associate chaos and evil and not really differentiate between the two. It's like, well, you can only have good if it's orderly, and it's like, no, that's not actually true. So you can have chaos that is not moral. It does not have a moral compunction one way or the other. But there just tends to be, especially in fantasy writing, it very much tends to be the forces of chaos are usually bad guys, and it's like it doesn't necessarily track.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's I kind of get it. It's the disrupting horde is usually the source of chaos and disorder, which it's kind of the disorder versus order, and when disorder is going out and murdering people, it's pretty fucking evil. But it's as you get into the more nuances of it, it's like no, every single one of them every single chaos alignment is kind of its own different thing, much like every single lawful alignment is its own different thing, etc. It's when you look at it from just one of the axes, it really does divide into 3 fairly well, whereas the lawful ones are for order and harmony, the neutral ones are for whatever works, and the chaos ones are the rebels against tyrants, the pure freedom. And similar with chaos, where it's like the pure freedom versus the complete fucking law random versus the destructive evil tear everything down.
Yeah.
I could probably put that in better words if I thought about it more, but you get the point.
If nothing else, the chaotic neutral description is bad. But chaotic neutral is not chaotic stupid, no matter how most people seem to play it.
I can do whatever I want because I'm chaotic neutral. It all equals out.
No, chaotic.
You're being an idiot. Stop that.
No, chaotic neutral is clearly humanoid frogs. Slatter weird.
I mean, yes.
By the way, the Slatter also in this edition is why they're not being a Limbo. Of all the things you can salvage from Limbo.
Yep.
All right. On to other books. The Underdark. So, New Origin, the God Torog, the new one from this edition, descended into the Underdark to kill Gargash, a primordial he didn't like. He succeeded at killing him, but his legs were destroyed in the process, and Gargash, of course, Torog did never have his legs heal and tied his power to the Underdark, so if he left, he would lose his godlike power, which he tried to do anyways by madly crawling around, breaking tunnels through the whole unfinished mess, as well as into the Feywild and Shadowfell, basically creating the Underdark, the Feydark, and the Shadowdark. His domain itself, because he can't actually go back to the Astral Sea, is deep at the bottom of the Underdark. As an aside, because he was locked in the Underdark for so long because of this curse, all the gods actually thought he was a coward trying to avoid the Dawn War, when in truth, no, he just couldn't leave.
Dude, go up.
The Underdark is still on the material plane, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Except where it crosses over into
Right.
the Feywild or the Shadowfell, where it becomes the Feydark and the Shadowdark.
Yep. Both of which might be worse.
I mean, at the very least, Shadowdark sounds a lot stupider.
Yeah.
Behold the shadow dark. Yes.
Yeah, shadows do tend to be dark, yes.
I'm pretty sure I went to high school with somebody who wanted to be called Shadowdark. Name was Tim.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next book. The Book of Naughtiness. It's just about running evil campaigns in this edition, though. Of note, it is divided into the DM book at the start and the player's book afterwards, which has this front and back pseudo cover, which I found amusing, actually, if nothing else. It's a neat way of distinguishing the two sections. Yeah.
That being said, for all practical purposes, it is about as complex and useful as a Book of Vile Darkness is ever going to be, by which I mean, unless you have a really good game group and are a really good DM, don't do this.
No, really don't. It is, unless you have unless you have the right players, just going to come out to edgy nonsense, honestly. All right, Monster Manual 2. There's monsters in this book. Also, someone finally got Demogorgon a sandwich. In case, moving on. Monster Manual 3. There's precisely two things I want to talk about in this book. Neither of them are Loth. Catastrophic Dragons. They actually remember to write something for this. So they give him more fleshing out in this book. After the death of Io, some of the dragons just decided to follow the primordials instead of Bahamut or Tiamat. Hence why they're more embracing the elemental chaos and such. And then after the primordials lost, they just said, nah, fuck it, and did their own thing. So,
Okay, that Earthquake Dragon design is really fucking cool.
yeah. I was actually surprised at, like, oh wait, the Earthquake Dragon actually exists in Magic.
Also, holy shit, that fucking mana cost.
I mean, it costs X less, where X is the total mana value of dragons you control. That very quickly becomes a 1 green cast.
Dragons aren't typically
my
cheap.
God.
No, they are not.
Yeah, it very quickly becomes a 1 green 10/10 flying trample.
Also, it's a lot cheaper when you cast it from a graveyard.
Yes.
No, that puts it back to your hand.
Yeah, that does put it to your hand. But no, it still very rapidly becomes a 10/10 flying trample for 1 green. You get like 2 or 3 dragons out. It is basically costs nothing.
Yeah. That's also the Commander Legend battle for Boulder's Gate. In other words, the Boulder's Gate 3 set, sort of.
Also reminding that it is in green, which means that 15 mana is not actually that hard to manage.
No, not really.
Fair, yeah.
It's in the ramp color.
Especially funny when you have 2 of them, because the first one makes the other
Oh,
one
plus 1 green, yes.
Yeah. All right. Elemental Princes. So these are the primordial lieutenants of the Elder Evil Eye. Somehow they don't know he's Tharzadum. I don't know. CR-wise, all primordials are on par
I
with
asked
gods.
him, he said no.
Huh?
I asked him if he was, and he said no.
It's my best guess, too, when it comes to this.
I mean, in all actuality, if you ask the Elder Elemental Eye anything, you mostly just get howls of pain that sound like hurricane winds.
Yeah, he mostly can't actually communicate with anyone.
No, he only answers that question.
Yeah, he basically only really can and does work through proxies like the Elemental Princes or Zuckmoy, the Queen of Fungi,
Yeah.
Lord. In any case, CR-wise, he's on par with gods. As as I said, they are all primordials are on par with gods. Imix, the Fire Prince, is roaming free or isn't. This edition likes to contradict itself here and there. But Ogre Mawk is currently served about 1,000 life sentences for participating in a cult Ponzi scheme. The Temple of Elemental Evil is equal parts kind of interesting and kind of fucking stupid.
As it always has been.
When I say cult Ponzi scheme, I am not fucking kidding.
No. No, that is pretty much the plot of Temple of Elemental Evil in this edition.
Yeah. All right, Open Grave. There's no negative energy playing in this decision, so how undead? The explanation should not surprise you in any way, or shape, or form. So originally, the original souls went off to just straight question mark, their final destination. No, it does not elaborate on this term. Until some primordials decided that they could keep that from happening, so they could nom on them. Which there was more souls than nomming, so undead. which the gods fixed by having Nerul be the god of the dead, who was then replaced by the Raven Lord after coming down with a case of murdered. Also, there is an aside in this book about that mentions Elder Evils and Trophus, the World-Born Dead, which is the only mention of either of these things I've seen in 4th edition as of the making of this slide. So anyways, moving on to the next one. Tomb of Horrors, not really 4th edition, not really lore per se, but this is a place I need to put this. Apparently they did a 4th edition version of Tomb of Horrors for reasons, which I have strange looks after for checking on one thing. Minor spoilers for what is the most famous trap in one of the oldest modules in RPG history. If you have not fucking heard of this, why are you? How did you find my video?
We've
Thanks for
already
watching.
talked about this.
But skip ahead, I guess, slightly. Hey, case, the world's least deadly sphere of annihilation.
Yep.
So yeah, the DCs here aren't exactly low for a level 9 character, but this is kind of toned down from the absolutely annihilate anything it touches, like it would have been in previous editions.
It deals 3d6 plus 6 damage.
That's
Who the fuck
What?
cares?
Yeah.
Enemies hit you harder than that.
It is important to note, if I remember correctly, the Tomb of Horrors before that is like a 9th level adventure.
yes.
Yes.
3d6 plus 6 damage is fucking nothing.
It'll eventually kill you. It does stun you.
It does stun you if it hits, but if you on a hit, it's 3d6 plus 6 and stun. On a miss, it's 2d6 damage.
And then you can just leave.
Yeah, and then you
I was like, that's like touching a hot burner on a stove.
And
You
it is
touch it,
worth
you go,
noting
"Ow."
that you don't continue to take 3d6 plus 6,
No, you
but if
don't.
you start your turn in spot, you take 10 damage.
well, it's that, but you also don't. It doesn't attack you again unless you
No.
stick your hand in it. So you can't just like. There would be the potential of being like permanently stun locked if it keeps hitting you to kill you. But there's not even that because it only hits you once and you pull your hand out.
Well, its save ends, so technically if you keep failing the save, you will keep taking the damage.
Ah, true.
Yeah, you will still be stunned until you save, but realistically, again, you're not taking a whole. You're taking 10 damage, not the
Yeah.
3d6 plus 6 every turn.
Yeah.
So significantly less than the average on a 3d6 plus 6. And you will eventually make that save just by
You have a
you know.
55% chance in the first
yeah.
place.
You have a 55% chance in the first place. You will eventually make that fucking save and just be like, man, that kind of fucking sucked.
And other party members can also just pull you out.
Yep.
It's not easy because there are some DCs to this that are,
Like a perception check.
yeah, and then a strength check of 16. So these aren't like automatic at level 9 per se, but
They're not hard.
no.
Yeah, but it's not touch instant death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not a sphere of annihilation. It's a sphere of minor inconvenience.
It's the level you'd be dealing with.
This is Final Fantasy IV touching the fire over and over again.
Ow, it's hot.
Yeah.
Ow, it's hot.
All right. Heroes of the Elemental Chaos. This is technically, again, a Essentials book, but that part doesn't matter for what we're talking about here. There's one table in here that I actually found neat. Roster of all the known primordials. Like a Trophus, who they mentioned could be a primordial or could not, but I guess is here. So back that whole as of making of that slide thing.
If you want to find play a really fun game to find out how significant this table actually is, try and count how many of these are not either dead or imprisoned. It's a very low number.
There are some that are deities. I think all of them are Forgotten Realms. The free ones are very few and far between as well, and I think mostly. Also, Imix, who is listed as being free in the Monster Manual 3, is listed as imprisoned here, so I don't fucking know.
Look, he fell in with a bad crowd between those two books. Got locked up.
The interdimensional Popo finally caught him. There's Garash, not to be confused with Gargash.
Or been confused with Grubmush.
Also notable, like, yeah, the Queen of Chaos is here. She is not a primordial
No.
at all. She's an Oberith.
I know.
She's mentioned even as an Oberith.
According to this list, she's a
Well,
primordial.
in the notes, it even says demonic primordial or Oberith. The other one I would love to point out here is over on this side, Entropy, who is imprisoned with a question mark because he's held in the sphere of annihilation, which we just established is not really much of an inconvenience, especially to a primordial. He's going to make that save in like 2 seconds. Be done.
His chances of dying are somewhere in like the statistical anomaly and would have to be done in scientific notation. Takes how much a turn? There's a non-zero chance he regens more than 10 a turn.
Probably.
Also of note, none of the demons are listed here, except for like I think Queen of Chaos and maybe Miska. Miska is kind of fair because it's a weirder origin, but like, what? There's no Demogorgon. There's no. Graz, it wouldn't make any sense, but there's no Demogorgon. There's no anything.
Shax.
Shax is not a demon. He's a vestige.
Yeah, he's a vestige. That was a demon.
Yes, he's one of the 72 Carlos Goetia.
Yes.
But different type of demon, I guess. Even though, like, a lot of the demon lords also are basically classic demons anyway. But, like Demogorgon.
Yes.
Yeah. Really not bad. This is also where I can find the other two elemental princes for the Elder Elemental Eye. Prince/princess, whatever.
Yes, including the Prince of Elemental Air, who's named like a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card. Yancy Bin.
How many of these could be Yu-Gi-Oh cards?
Quite a number.
Yeah. But yeah.
I summon Dendar, the Night Serpent. And he has a title, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Dendar the Night Serpent. There's that one's Toro, right? Yeah, that's one of the Elder Evils. Okay.
Yes.
It is, I guess, apparently a primordial now. Or not. I don't know. I don't believe this table went for not offhand.
They're using an extremely loose definition of primordial for this table, I think.
Yes, they are. All right. And finally, the back of the book. So, again, I could have spent several hours just on the Plains trilogy talking about the random ass dominions. But as the title implied, this is an overview of the world axis cosmology and the changes from previous editions. I noticed at a glance. You can read about celestial landophonies in your free time if you really want to. It's in both the planes above and manual of the planes. But overall, there are things I liked, like Chernogar, which is just fucking amusing. Things I find amusing, literally primordials did the explanation for 90% of the different things that wouldn't have otherwise worked, and things I just like. The metallic dragon changes are unfucking necessary.
I think the biggest thing about the metallic dragon changes is anyone who is at least halfway competent would realize that just because metallic dragons were actually good doesn't necessarily mean they were always on the player's side.
Yeah.
No, and also
You don't have to change it to be like, no, they're not always good. It's like, no, they can still always be good. They're also fucking dragons. They are operating on a level so far above your understanding.
there's also this weird mentality in this edition that absolutely everything has to be a monster that can be dropped in without even plot reason, just because it's like, why are we fighting a gold dragon? Well, not all gold dragons are good, so here's a fucking gold dragon, and go fight it, I guess. It's like you don't.
It's like, no, pretty much all the gold dragons are good.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, but it's all not in fourth ed.
Yeah, not in fourth ed.
But again, it's a matter of like, yes, all gold dragons are good. Just because he is good does not mean he is okay with what you are doing. He's got shit he's got plans in the works.
Yeah,
He's got irons in the fire. You may be fucking it up.
He's got a game to play.
yeah.
Even if we're not taking him to the great game, which is undoubtedly the best dragons of all time.
Yeah.
But even if we're talking like even just standard D&D dragons,
Dragons up to shit.
they're up to shit. You don't know what the fuck that gold dragon is doing, and something you are planning to do is going to fuck up his shit. He's going to stop you, and if he has to kill you to do it, that's what he's going to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It just typically won't be his first choice.
No, he would try and talk to you and be like, hey, I need you to knock that the fuck off. I can't really explain why. You should stop.
Yeah. Also, there's plenty of room for good monsters in the monster manual. Yeah, they don't have to act. It's nice to have actual, like, a variety of players or a variety of NPCs you can put in your game. They don't all have to be flavored to be antagonists, period.
It's kind of the same thing. I don't know. I know we kind of briefly, very rapidly mentioned it when we were covering this, but it's the same thing they did with like the angels.
Yeah.
Where now angels are no longer necessarily good aligned. They are just a servant of any god is an angel. So if there's an evil god, he has evil angels. And I was like, okay, but we kind of already had those. There are servants of the various different alignments. And it just doesn't work as well because you suddenly have these things where it's like, okay, now we have to like, as much as this is the trend of all of fourth ed, very like homogenize and genericize the descriptions and origins of these things to make it make sense that they could be, say, evil.
Any alignment work for anyone.
You know, as opposed to like in the past where like solars are like, no, they are literally physical manifestations of good.
Okay, now that I think about this, I lost a slide, so I'll mention what was on that slide anyways. I did actually have a slide that went over the explanation of Exarchs, Outsiders, and Damnation, and the Damned. So the Damned are actually the easiest part. They went to hell.
Yeah.
Exarchs are, they made it into one heaven or another. If, after dying, obviously, if you die as an Exarch or are damned in your actual plane of existence, something happens. You might be permanently dead. You might reincarnate. Like in Chernogar, basically everyone just kind of reincarnates.
Yeah.
If you die outside that plane, you're generally dead. The other two fates that can happen are you go to your final destination, which is the question mark that I always did, or you become an outsider, which means you awaken in one of those shattered islands outside of one of the dominions, and you can't make it into any dominion.
Yeah.
You have a lifespan of about 200 years, and no one knows why, and there's no real explanation.
They also really never do anything with this.
No, they don't.
Which sucks because it's actually really
Here's
cool.
some interesting thing.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yep. It would make for an actual interesting, like, plane above campaign where you are basically on the outer islands of, because the outer islands do actually take on a bit of the theme of the
whatever dominion they're nearest. Yeah.
Yeah,
again, it would be a really cool like campaign or even just like a module to run where it's like, oh no, the whole party are actually outsiders trying to get back into their dominions.
Yeah.
And essentially bumping up against, well, why
can't I go home?
First off, why do I exist this way?
Yeah.
Why did I become an outsider rather than, whatever else could happen?
Passing on.
And beyond that, why can I not make it back? Like what is actually stopping it? But no, they never actually investigate this any further than pretty much that description and explanation. And then there's like, no, it's just a thing that happens.
And in of itself, I'd be kind of fine with that if it was more the exception than the rule of this edition, that here's some plot hooks and some wishy-washy maybe language, and we don't really go too much into detail, but there's a bit too much of that in this edition.
Yeah.
There is definition.
It's fine to leave open-ended hooks.
Yeah.
But you can answer some of these hooks.
Yeah. What it really is, and again, it's the intention of an edition. Obviously we don't know 100% for sure. We're not the writers, we're not the creators, we don't have any line to them or anything like that. But it very is much a case of like, it feels like in a lot of instances, fourth ed, they were intentional, because like when it really comes down to it, they didn't actually release a whole lot of like pre-constructed campaigns or modules for fourth ed. It was just not nearly as massive a thing as it was for 3.5 or that it's been for 5th even. And even 5th is definitely a lot lighter on that, but they've done a fair amount of 5th ed like pre-con modules. They did not do a lot of those for 4th ed, and it felt like 4th ed very much was the case of them just being like, here, we gave you a sandbox, play in it. No, we're not going to we're not going to guide you at all. We gave you the sandbox. There's interesting things buried in there somewhere. I don't know, fucking find them.
And
here's a cool concept, but we're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, and they have the building block. There are modules, obviously. Keep on the Shadowfield is a very.
There are, but there's not nearly as many.
And there are like building blocks for like kind of a slot together your own pseudo module, but you're going to have to do the actual plot writing in a lot of these books. Like a lot of the sections of the Draconomicons and the Demonomicon were like vignettes and set pieces with encounters and such.
I mean, the big thing is, and I mean, I know we try not to do too much like system to system comparison within these in hindsights, because we are talking about the specific, but just to give sort of a comparison of a contemporary of this, right? If you compare, say, 4th edition to Pathfinder, the other thing that was, very easily comparable because it was the other sort of primary
Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah, Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah.
Obviously, because second edition is much more recent.
Yeah.
Second edition is effectively contemporary to 5th ed. But so Pathfinder First Edition, as compared to D&D 4th Edition, you look at how many actual like pre-con modules and pre-con campaigns were being put out by Wizards for 4th Edition versus Pathfinder, where Paizo was putting out I cannot think of a time where there was more than like a 2-month gap where Paizo wasn't publishing a module, basically.
They were doing the adventure paths, which were a set of 6 adventures all linked together that basically take you from level 1 to 18 to 20, depending on the adventure.
Yeah.
They put one like these are 6 per thing. They put out 2 a year.
Yeah.
Literally every month had a release.
There were very rare occasions where there was like a 1 or 2 month gap, and they would release like 2 in a month.
Yeah.
One toward the beginning, one toward the end. But it was they were putting out 2 full adventure paths every year for the entire life of Pathfinder
and
First
that's
Edition.
separate from the like one shots and stuff they would intersperse
Yeah.
when they're out there. They basically had a set. We released 2 entire 1 to 18 to 20 adventures a year.
Yeah.
Plus scattered one shots throughout.
And
fourth is like
half of the Pathfinder ones had through lines that tied together some of these adventure paths to other ones. Like they were sequels, or even if not sequels, they were like, hey, the events of this adventure path matter to this one. So if you have run this one,
you can use
the stuff that happened to influence the events here. Whereas, fourth ed was just kind of a like, eh.
Yeah. Now, quality of adventure paths, especially when you get later parts, are
I mean, we talked about that, but
gameplay has always been wonky.
yes,
but it still is a matter of like, regardless of the quality
putting
they were
out content for their system.
Yeah.
That was just here's an adventure,
And
play
it's-
it.
and
as
it's a lot-
opposed to here's an idea.
and it's a lot easier, even as not maybe the massively experienced DM, but if you've got a decent amount of experience, even like a mid-level, average level experienced DM, you can fix a broken module.
Yeah.
Much easier than you can just be like, well, I have 800 adventure hooks and no actual adventure to run with them, so now I've got to spend 20 hours of my time figuring out how to turn this vague one paragraph they put in about this thing
That's
into an
interesting
adventure.
concept into an actual
Or even like stitch together X or Y, X amount of scenarios. Build my own dungeon out.
Yeah, because they just really did not have it. Like you said, some of these books would have maybe like 1 or 2 little like brief example adventures, but even by saying an example quote unquote adventure, I mean it was like 2 encounters.
Oh no, it's more than like 1 or 2. It is like a decent chunk of the book.
But the ones that they had were like they're not really a full adventure. They're like 2 or 3 encounters, and they're like, this will be like 1 session. So it's like if you ran an entire book's worth of those, you could maybe make a brief campaign. But
if you get all the books together, very Mad Libs campaign where you literally just go between these and the DM tries to justify why you're bouncing between all this random crap. It's like, okay, demons, undead, dragons.
And once again, they fucked up because it's easy to justify if you're all based out of Sigil.
Yep.
walk through a door.
Anyways.
Yep. That will do it for D&D in Hindsight for this week. So stay tuned in like less than a half hour probably, or a half hour or so.
About half hour, 45 minutes. We'll be back with more Paranormasight, 7 Mysteries of Hanjo. So again, just as a reminder, our Sunday streams are at around 11 a.m. Pacific for in Hindsight, and around 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Pacific for Paranormasight Sound Golden Storytime currently. Tomorrow, we'll be back with more Pokemon ZA at around 7 p.m. Pacific. And on Thursday, we'll be doing some more Yakuza 0 as we continue our adventures in Kamurocho and maybe finally get done with Chapter 2 sub-stories at around 9 p.m. Pacific. And then, right back here next week, starting at 11 a.m. with more In Hindsight as we're coming pretty close. I think you said you had a schedule. We've got how many more? 2 more?
We should have 2 more. Next week will be Psionics and probably something else in addition to Psionics. And then we'll do the Essentials and wrap up.
Yeah, so about 2 more weeks we're going to be on 4th Ed, and then we'll be moving on to another system. Most likely, I think we'll probably talk about Pathfinder.
Yeah, Pathfinder.
Just because we'll kind of stay in the same sort of sphere, because again, it's the one that's going to have the most easy comparisons and analogs to make.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Pathfinder First Edition at that point. Probably briefly touch on Second Ed. None of us have actually played Second Ed that much, so we don't have a lot to say about it.
I might save Second Ed for a bit later. I want to do much more.
Either way, we will have a lot to say about Pathfinder First Ed. It is probably the system we have played the most of.
Yeah, we get to talk about it as a contemporary 2/4, and also we did all of 3.5.
Yeah.
And it's 3.75.
Yeah. So that'll be what's coming up next. But until then, I've been Bograt.
I've been the Crank.
I've been Shiv.
I've been Hunter Green.
And I'm Vincent.
Have a good one, everyone.